I always thought the worst thing I'd ever hear was, "We need to talk." Turns out it wasn't cheating because there were no feelings involved. The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest as I sat there in our cramped living room, Emma's phone still warm in my hands. The screen glowed with messages that made my stomach turn. Explicit texts, hotel receipts, plans made while I was working overtime to keep us afloat. "Jake, please say something," Emma whispered from the doorway, her hair still damp from the shower. She'd left her phone on the coffee table, and when it buzzed with another message from David, work, I'd made the mistake of glancing at it. One message led to another and another until I was staring at 6 months of my life unraveling in real time. I looked up at her, this woman I'd been supporting for 3 years, and felt something cold settle in my chest. "How long?" "6 months, but Jake, it's not what you think." "6 months." I repeated the words slowly, tasting their bitterness. "While I've been working 60-hour weeks, paying for everything, you've been—" "It's just physical." Emma rushed forward, her hands fluttering nervously. "David means nothing to me. You're the one I love. You're the one I come home to. It wasn't cheating because there were no feelings involved." I stared at her, this woman who couldn't even cover her half of the rent, who drove the car I insured, who ate the groceries I bought, the woman who justified betrayal with semantics. "No feelings involved," I repeated, my voice eerily calm. Emma nodded eagerly, mistaking my quiet tone for acceptance. "Exactly. It was just, I don't know, stress relief? You work so much, and David was there, and it just happened. But it doesn't mean anything, Jake. We don't have to let this ruin us." I set her phone down carefully on the coffee table and stood up. "Okay." The confusion that crossed her face would have been comical under different circumstances. "Okay? You said there were no feelings involved. I understand." Emma blinked rapidly, clearly expecting a fight, screaming, maybe some thrown dishes. The calm acceptance seemed to throw her off balance. "So, we're okay? You forgive me?" I walked past her toward our bedroom, my mind already working, calculating, planning. "I'm going to organize some things." "Jake?" Her voice followed me down the hallway. "Are you really okay with this?" I paused at the bedroom door and looked back at her. She stood there in her bathrobe, looking so small and vulnerable, and for a split second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "You're right, Emma. No feelings involved." That night, while she slept peacefully beside me, apparently relieved that her confession had gone so smoothly, I stared at the ceiling and felt my emotions systematically shutting down. Click, 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 like circuit breakers flipping off one by one. Love, off. Trust, off. Compassion, off. By morning, I felt nothing but a cold, mechanical clarity. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzling, matching my mood perfectly. Emma kissed me goodbye like nothing had happened, heading off to her part-time paralegal job while I prepared for what she didn't know would be the most productive day of my life. First stop, First National Bank on Maple Street. "I need to change my direct deposit information," I told the teller, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes who probably handled a dozen relationship casualties every week. "Of course, Mr. Thompson. Any particular reason for the change?" "Moving accounts," I lied smoothly. The truth was simpler. I was moving Emma out of my financial life, one transaction at a time. Next, I called our landlord, Mr. Peterson, from the parking lot. "Pete, it's Jake Thompson from Unit 4B. I need to remove someone from the lease." "Emma, having second thoughts about renewing?" Pete's gravelly voice carried years of tenant drama. "Something like that. Can you email me the paperwork?" "Sure thing. She'll need to sign off on it, you know." "Actually, Pete, check the original lease. I think you'll find I'm the primary tenant." Emma was added as an authorized occupant, not a co-signer. A pause, then rustling papers. "You're right. I can remove her with 30 days' notice. You want me to start that process?" "Please." Third call. Mutual Insurance Company. "I need to remove a driver from my auto policy." "Is this due to a change in household composition?" the agent asked. "You could say that." "I'll need the effective date for the removal." I glanced at my watch. "How about tomorrow?" Fourth call, credit card company. "I'm calling to close a joint account and remove an authorized user." By lunchtime, I'd systematically erased Emma from every financial aspect of my life. The joint checking account became mine alone. The shared Netflix password was changed. The car insurance that covered her 10-year-old Honda was scheduled for cancellation. Emma had said there were no feelings involved in her affair. She was about to learn what no feelings really looked like. Tuesday evening, she came home flustered. The weirdest thing happened today, she said, dropping her purse by the door. I got this email from Peterson about the lease renewal, but it only had your name on it. Must be a mistake, right? I looked up from my laptop, where I was researching apartment complexes in her price range. Did you call him? I tried, but he didn't call back. She shrugged, already dismissing it. Probably just a clerical error. Wednesday brought the real fun. My phone rang around 2 p.m. Emma, crying. Jake, something's wrong with my car insurance. They're saying my coverage was terminated, and my credit card isn't working. The grocery store was so embarrassing, the card got declined in front of everyone. That's strange, I said, not looking up from my computer screen. Can you call them? Maybe there's some kind of mix-up with the accounts. Sure, I'll look into it. I didn't call anyone. Thursday evening, Emma sat across from me at our small dining table, her face pale and drawn. Jake, what's happening? The insurance company says I was removed from the policy. The credit card company says the account was closed. Peterson finally called me back and said I'm not on the lease anymore. I closed my laptop and gave her my full attention. You're not? What do you mean I'm not? I mean you were never a co-signer on the lease, Emma. You were listed as an authorized occupant. I removed you. The color drained completely from her face. You? What? I also removed you from my car insurance policy, closed our joint accounts, and canceled the credit cards. Effective immediately. Emma's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. You're cutting me off? I'm not cutting you off. I'm removing my support. There's a difference. But we live together. We're a couple. I reached into my laptop bag and pulled out a folded document. 30-day notice to vacate. You have a month to find somewhere else to live. Emma snatched the paper, her hands shaking as she read it. You're evicting me? Jake, this is insane. This is extreme. Is it? I leaned back in my chair, feeling remarkably calm. You told me your affair wasn't cheating because there were no feelings involved. I'm simply applying the same logic. That's completely different. How? Because I stayed with you. I chose you. You stayed because I paid for everything. The realization hit her like a physical blow. I could see it in her eyes, the moment she understood that her choice hadn't been between me and David, but between me and homelessness. Jake, please. I know I messed up, but this is crazy. We can work through this. There's nothing to work through. You made your choice when you decided to sleep with David for 6 months. I'm making mine now. Emma started crying then. Ugly sobs that might have moved me a week ago. Now they just sounded like noise. What about my car? I can't afford insurance on my own. Your car, your insurance. I can't afford this place by myself. Then I suggest you start looking for something you can afford. She stared at me like I was a stranger. I don't understand. Monday you said you were okay with this. I said I understood, and I do. You taught me something valuable, Emma. What? I stood up, gathering my laptop and the empty takeout containers from dinner I'd bought for myself. That feelings are a liability I can't afford. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of Emma's increasingly desperate attempts to change my mind. She tried everything: tears, anger, seduction, bargaining, more tears. She promised to cut contact with David, to quit her job, to do whatever it takes to fix things. I watched it all with the detached interest of a scientist observing a lab rat in a maze. I'll do anything, she sobbed one evening, clinging to my arm as I tried to make dinner. There's nothing to do, I replied, gently but firmly removing her hands. You made your choice. I've made mine. The truly fascinating part was watching her support system crumble. Emma had always been the type to overshare with her friends, and apparently, her confession about the affair hadn't gone over well with her social circle. Her best friend Sophie stopped returning calls after Emma admitted the affair had been going on for 6 months. Her work friends grew cold when word spread about her situation with David. Even her parents, who had never particularly liked me, seemed more disappointed in her than supportive. They're all judging me, Emma complained, scrolling through her phone for the 100th time that day. Sophie won't even talk to me. She said she can't trust someone who would cheat on a good guy. Imagine that, I said, not looking up from my book. This isn't fair, Jake. I made a mistake, but I'm being punished by everyone. You're not being punished. You're experiencing consequences. There's a difference. In desperation, Emma reached out to David, hoping he might offer her the support I was no longer providing. That conversation, which I overheard through the thin bathroom door, was particularly enlightening. David, I need help. Jake's kicking me out and I don't have anywhere to go. A pause, then David's voice, tinny through the phone speaker. Emma, look, what we had was fun, but I thought you understood it wasn't serious. I know, but I'm in real trouble here. Could I maybe stay with you for a few days? Just until I figure things out? I don't think that's a good idea. I'm actually seeing someone else now. Someone else? Already? It's not like we were exclusive or anything. You had your boyfriend. Had. Past tense. He's throwing me out. Look, I'm sorry things got complicated, but that's not really my problem. We both knew this was just physical. The sound of Emma's phone hitting the bathroom wall was followed by more sobbing. Just physical. No feelings involved. Her own words coming back to haunt her through David's mouth. By the third week, Emma's desperation had reached new heights. She'd managed to find a studio apartment in the worst part of town, the only thing she could afford on her part-time salary, but she was still trying to negotiate. What if I move out but we keep dating? She suggested one evening. We could start over, rebuild trust. I'm not interested in dating you. Why not? I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in weeks. She'd lost weight, her clothes hung loose, and there were dark circles under her eyes. 3 weeks of reality had aged her years. Because I don't feel anything for you anymore, I said simply. You taught me that feelings are optional, so I opted out. The next day, I ran into Sophie at the grocery store. Emma's former best friend looked uncomfortable when she spotted me in the produce section. Jake, she said awkwardly, how are you holding up? Fine. You? I'm sorry about what happened. With Emma, I mean. I had no idea she was capable of something like that. I selected a bag of apples, taking my time. People surprise you. She keeps calling me, but I can't. My husband cheated on me 2 years ago, and I know how it feels. I can't be friends with someone who would do that to a good person. I appreciate that. Sophie hesitated, then plunged ahead. Is it true you're making her move out? She's an adult. She can live wherever she chooses. But you're not helping her financially anymore? Would you help someone who betrayed you? Sophie considered this. Probably not. She seems so lost. She made her choices. I know, I just feel bad for her. I looked at Sophie. Really looked at her. Do you feel bad for me? Of course. Then don't feel bad for her too. You don't get to feel sorry for both the victim and the perpetrator. Pick a side. Sophie nodded slowly. You're right. I'm sorry, Jake, for everything. As I walked away, I heard her phone buzz. Probably Emma, calling for the 20th time that day. Sophie didn't answer. Moving day arrived with all the drama I'd expected. Emma had managed to recruit David to help her move, which struck me as either incredibly naive or desperately pathetic. Probably both. I made sure to be home for the show. David turned out to be exactly what I'd imagined, gym-toned, expensively dressed, with the kind of artificial confidence that screamed insecurity. He avoided eye contact when Emma introduced us, which told me everything I needed to know about his character. This is awkward, Emma said, wringing her hands as David loaded her meager possessions into his BMW. I wish things could have ended differently. Things ended exactly as they should have, I replied, watching David struggle with a box that was clearly too heavy for his gym-sculpted but functionally useless muscles. I never meant for any of this to happen. Yes, you did. You meant for it to happen 27 times over 6 months. You just didn't mean to get caught. Emma flinched. How do you know how many times? I read your messages, all of them. The color drained from her face. Jake? 27 hotel visits, 43 lunch dates, hundreds of texts about how clueless and boring I was, how David made you feel alive in ways I never could. I kept my voice conversational, like I was discussing the weather. Did you think I only read the recent ones? David had stopped loading boxes and was now listening intently, probably wondering what else Emma had said about him in those messages. I was angry when I wrote those things, Emma said weakly. You were honest when you wrote those things. That's the difference. David cleared his throat. Emma, we should probably get going. I have plans later. Plans that apparently didn't include helping Emma unpack or settle into her new place. I watched the realization cross her face that even now, even after she'd lost everything for him, David was still treating her like a convenient distraction. Of course, she said quietly. Jake, I'm sorry for everything. I nodded. I know you are. Do you think, someday, we might be able to be friends? The question was so absurd it almost made me laugh. No, Emma, we won't be friends. We won't be anything. After today, we'll be strangers who used to know each other. She started crying again, but this time David didn't comfort her. He just kept loading boxes, eager to finish this unpleasant task and get back to his real life. After they left, I stood in the suddenly spacious apartment and felt nothing. No relief, no sadness, no anger. Just a vast, echoing emptiness where my feelings used to be. I liked it. Over the next month, I heard updates about Emma through the small-town gossip network. She was struggling with 2 part-time jobs, trying to make ends meet. David had stopped returning her calls after helping her move. She'd been forced to sell her car and take the bus to work. The updates came mostly from mutual acquaintances who seemed to expect me to feel guilty about Emma's situation. They were disappointed. "She's really having a hard time," said Mark, a guy from my old bowling league, during a chance encounter at the hardware store. "I'm sure she is." "Don't you feel bad for her?" "Should I?" Mark looked uncomfortable. "I mean, she made a mistake, but she's really paying for it now. She's experiencing the natural consequences of her choices. That's not punishment, it's cause and effect. But you guys were together for 3 years, and she spent the last 6 months of those 3 years sleeping with someone else. What's your point?" Mark didn't have an answer for that. The conversation bothered me, though, because it highlighted something I'd been noticing. People expected me to forgive Emma. They expected me to be the bigger person, to show mercy, to help her through this difficult time. They expected me to have feelings. But Emma had taught me that feelings were optional, unnecessary complications that only led to pain and betrayal. She'd shown me that love was just a word people used to justify taking advantage of others. I'd learned the lesson well. 2 months after Emma moved out, I ran into David at a coffee shop downtown. He was alone, looking significantly less confident than he had on moving day. "Jake," he said nervously when he spotted me in line. "David." "Look, about the whole thing with Emma, I want you to know it wasn't personal." I ordered my coffee and turned to face him. "Wasn't personal? I mean, I didn't set out to hurt you or anything. It just happened. 27 times. David blinked. "What?" "It happened 27 times. That's a lot of accidents." "Emma told you that?" "Emma's phone told me that, along with a lot of other interesting details." I stepped closer, and David instinctively stepped back. "Did you know she was planning to leave me for you?" No, that's not. We never talked about anything serious." "She did. She had it all planned out. She was going to wait until I renewed the lease with her name on it, then break up with me and move in with you. She thought she was so clever." David's face went pale. "I never promised her anything like that." "I know. That's what makes it so perfect." "Perfect?" "She destroyed her relationship with me based on a fantasy relationship with you. She gave up everything real for something that was never going to happen." I picked up my coffee from the counter. "That's poetic justice." David stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "You're really not upset about this?" "Why would I be upset? You did me a favor. You showed me who Emma really was before I made the mistake of marrying her." "But don't you miss her?" I considered the question seriously. "I miss the person I thought she was. But that person never existed. You can't miss something that was never real." David left the coffee shop looking more confused than when he'd arrived. I stayed and enjoyed my coffee in peace, watching the morning rush through the window and feeling absolutely nothing. It was the most relaxed I'd been in years. 3 months after Emma moved out, I was genuinely surprised to receive a text from her. I'd assumed our communication was permanently severed, but apparently desperation had driven her to reach out one more time. "Jake, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I'm in real trouble. I lost one of my jobs and I'm behind on rent. I know I don't deserve your help, but I don't have anyone else to ask." I stared at the message for a long time, feeling that familiar emptiness where my emotions used to be. 6 months ago, this text would have torn me apart. I would have felt guilty, responsible, compelled to help despite everything she'd done. Now I felt nothing. I typed back, "You're right. You don't deserve my help." Her response came immediately. "Please, Jake. I'm desperate. I might get evicted." "That sounds like a you problem." "How can you be so cold? This isn't like you." I almost laughed at that. This is exactly like me. This is who I am when I'm not being taken advantage of. I made a mistake. Haven't I suffered enough? You didn't make a mistake, Emma. You made a choice. 27 choices, actually. And suffering isn't a payment plan for forgiveness. I don't understand how you can just turn off your feelings like this. You taught me how. Remember? No feelings involved. She didn't respond to that. A week later, I heard through the gossip network that Emma had been evicted. She was staying on Sophie's couch temporarily, despite Sophie's obvious reluctance to get involved. Apparently, even former best friends had their limits when it came to charity. I also heard that David had started dating someone new, a dental hygienist named Rebecca, who had no idea about his history with Emma. The irony wasn't lost on me that Emma had destroyed her life for a man who'd already forgotten she existed. But the most interesting development came a month later when I received an unexpected visitor. I opened my door to find Emma's mother, Patricia, standing in the hallway with the kind of grim expression that suggested this wasn't a social call. "Mrs. Chen," I said, genuinely surprised. "This is unexpected. May I come in, Jake?" I stepped aside and let her enter. Patricia had never liked me much. She'd always thought Emma could do better, but she looked uncomfortable now, like someone forced to eat their words. "Coffee?" I offered. "No, thank you. I won't take up much of your time." We sat in the living room, which looked significantly better now that Emma's clutter was gone. I'd redecorated, bought some new furniture, turned it into a space that actually felt like home. "Emma told me what happened," Patricia said finally. "I'm sure she did. She said you threw her out for one mistake." "Is that what she called it? One mistake?" Patricia's expression shifted slightly. "Wasn't it?" "Mrs. Chen, did Emma tell you the affair lasted 6 months? Did she mention the 27 hotel visits? The hundreds of text messages about how boring and clueless I was? Did she explain that she was planning to leave me anyway after she got her name on the lease?" Patricia's face went through several color changes. She said it was a brief lapse in judgment. It was a sustained campaign of deception and betrayal. There's a difference. "But you supported her for 3 years. Doesn't that count for something?" "It counted for everything, right up until she decided it counted for nothing." Patricia was quiet for a long moment. "She's struggling, Jake. Really struggling." "I know. Don't you care?" "No." The bluntness of my answer seemed to shock her. "How can you not care about someone you loved?" "Because love is a choice, Mrs. Chen, and I'm choosing not to make it anymore." "That's not how love works, isn't it? Emma chose to stop loving me 6 months ago. She just didn't tell me about it. I'm simply making the same choice openly." Patricia stared at me like I was a stranger. "You've changed." "Yes, I've learned." "Learned what?" "That feelings are a luxury I can't afford. That trust is a gift that shouldn't be given freely. That some people will take everything you offer and still ask for more." "Emma's not a bad person, Jake. She made mistakes. Emma is exactly the person she chose to be, and I'm exactly the person she taught me to be." Patricia left looking more troubled than when she'd arrived. I suspected Emma's version of events had been significantly sanitized, and the reality was harder to argue with than the fiction. That evening, I received another text from Emma. "My mom talked to you today. Whatever you told her, she's barely speaking to me now." I told her the truth. Your version of the truth. The only version that matters. "Jake, please. I know I hurt you, but this has gone too far. I've lost everything. My job, my home, my friends, even my family is disappointed in me. When is enough enough?" I stared at the message for a long time, remembering the man I used to be. The man who would have felt guilty reading those words, who would have wanted to help despite everything. That man was gone. "Enough is when you learn that actions have consequences," I typed back. "Enough is when you stop expecting other people to fix the problems you created. Enough is when you take responsibility for your choices instead of blaming everyone else for not enabling them." "I am taking responsibility." "No, you're experiencing consequences. That's not the same thing." "What do you want from me?" "Nothing. That's the point." "I don't believe you can just stop caring about someone." "Watch me." She didn't respond, and I didn't expect her to. There was nothing left to say. 6 months later, I heard that Emma had moved back in with her parents in another state. David had gotten engaged to the dental hygienist. Sophie had blocked Emma on all social media platforms. The gossip network had moved on to fresher scandals, and Emma's name rarely came up anymore. I was dating someone new, a nurse named Jennifer who paid her own bills, told the truth, and understood that trust was something to be earned, not assumed. We took things slowly, carefully, with the kind of deliberate caution that comes from experience. "You're different from other guys I've dated," Jennifer told me one evening over dinner. "How so?" "You don't seem to need anything from me. Most men want something: validation, ego stroking, financial help, emotional labor. You just don't." "Is that good or bad?" "It's refreshing, but also a little scary." "Why scary?" "Because I can tell you could walk away from this, from us, without looking back. That's not normal." She was right, of course. I could walk away. I could walk away from anything now, anyone. Emma had taught me that attachment was vulnerability, and I'd learned that lesson thoroughly. "Would that bother you?" I asked. Jennifer considered this. It should, but honestly, it makes me want to earn the choice to stay. That was the difference between Jennifer and Emma. Jennifer understood that love was a choice made daily, not a debt to be collected on. She understood that respect was earned through actions, not demanded through guilt. She understood that feelings, when they existed at all, were a privilege to be treasured, not a right to be assumed. Emma had taught me that no feelings involved was a weapon. Jennifer was teaching me it could also be a foundation, a place to build something real, something honest, something that couldn't be destroyed by selfishness and lies. 1 year after Emma moved out, I received a final message from her. It was longer than her previous texts, more thoughtful, and it arrived on the anniversary of the day I'd discovered her affair. Jake, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I understand why. I've spent the last year thinking about everything that happened, and I need you to know that I finally understand what you tried to tell me. I didn't just cheat on you. I disrespected you, used you, and took advantage of your love. I told myself it wasn't cheating because there were no feelings involved, but that made it worse, not better. It meant I was willing to risk everything we had for something that meant nothing. I was willing to throw away something real for something empty. I know you'll probably never forgive me, and I don't expect you to. I just wanted you to know that I finally get it. You didn't punish me. You just stopped letting me use you. I'm sorry it took losing everything for me to learn what you tried to teach me. I hope you're happy. I hope you found someone who deserves the love I threw away. Emma. I read the message 3 times, waiting to feel something. Satisfaction, vindication, maybe even a trace of the old affection. But there was nothing. Emma's belated understanding was meaningless to me now, her apology a year too late and several betrayals too few. I deleted the message without responding. That evening, Jennifer and I were cooking dinner together in the kitchen of the house I'd bought. A real house with a yard and a mortgage in my name only. Jennifer had her own apartment across town, her own life, her own independence. We chose to spend time together, rather than being forced together by financial necessity. You're quiet tonight, she observed, chopping vegetables with the kind of precise efficiency that spoke to her medical training. Emma texted me today. Jennifer's hands stilled for just a moment, then resumed their work. What did she want? To apologize, I think. To show me she'd learned something. And how do you feel about that? I don't. Jennifer nodded, unsurprised. She'd learned not to expect emotional reactions from me about Emma. Do you think you'll ever feel anything about her again? Anger, forgiveness, anything? I considered the question seriously. No, she's like a cautionary tale I used to know personally. You don't have feelings about cautionary tales. That's probably healthy. Is it? You're not carrying anger or resentment. You're not hoping for revenge or reconciliation. You've genuinely moved on. That's healthier than most people manage after betrayal. I've moved on because I moved out. Emotionally, I mean. Jennifer set down her knife and turned to face me. Can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think you'll ever move back in? Emotionally? It was a question I'd been asking myself for months. Jennifer deserved an honest answer, even if it wasn't the one she wanted to hear. I don't know, I said finally. Emma taught me that feelings are a liability, that love makes you vulnerable to people who will exploit that vulnerability. I'm not sure I want to unlearn that lesson. Even with me? Especially with you. Jennifer looked confused. Why especially with me? Because you matter. Emma couldn't really hurt me anymore by the time I found out about the affair. Our relationship was already hollow. I just didn't know it. But you could actually hurt me. That makes you dangerous. So you're protecting yourself from me? I'm protecting myself from everyone. It's nothing personal. Jennifer was quiet for a long moment, processing this. That's sad, Jake. Is it? I'm not in pain. I'm not anxious about being betrayed again. I sleep well at night. I make decisions based on logic rather than emotion. Emma thought she was teaching me that feelings were optional. She was right. But you're also not really living. You're just existing. I'm existing peacefully. That's more than a lot of people can say. Jennifer turned back to her vegetables, but I could see the wheels turning in her head. What if I told you I was willing to take the risk? What risk? The risk of loving someone who might not love me back. The risk of being vulnerable with someone who's chosen not to be vulnerable in return. I'd tell you that's a bad investment. Maybe. Or maybe it's the only investment worth making. We finished cooking in comfortable silence, each lost in our own thoughts. Over dinner, Jennifer told me about her day at the hospital, and I told her about a particularly challenging IT project at work. We talked about weekend plans, a movie we wanted to see, the book she was reading, normal conversation between two people who cared about each other in whatever way I was still capable of caring. Later, as Jennifer was getting ready to leave for her own apartment, she paused at the door. "Jake? Yeah? Emma didn't teach you that feelings were optional. What did she teach me then? That your feelings weren't safe with her. That's not the same thing." After Jennifer left, I sat in my living room with a beer and thought about what she'd said. Maybe she was right. Maybe the lesson wasn't that feelings were dangerous, but that some people were dangerous to have feelings for. Maybe the real lesson was learning the difference. But that was a lesson for another day, another year, another version of myself that might someday be willing to take that risk again. For now, I was content with the quiet, content with the peace that came from expecting nothing from anyone and being surprised by nothing. Emma had told me it wasn't cheating because there were no feelings involved. I'd nodded and shut mine off completely. The rent, the car coverage, and the sudden quiet had delivered the lesson she'd dismissed. She'd learned it too late to matter, but she'd learned it. And in the end, that was enough.